true analog synthesizer with 2 oscillators, a mixer, 2 envelopes, an arpeggiator. This wants to make aggressive sounds. The Malevolent Modular Synthesizer by PWM. The person who started this company in the UK, Paul Whittington, I know him back in the days of Novation when I was working on the sound set of the Ultra Nova. And now he has his own company, PWM, and this is his first release, and it is very exciting. It is a true analog synthesizer with 2 oscillators. Those oscillators can be sawtooth or triangle or square pulse, and all 3 can be on at the same time or any combination. And then you have FM, frequency modulation control, twice for each of the oscillators, as well as standard pitch 1 volt per octave. And then you also have control over shape. Lots of ways to get in and manipulate that. You have a mixer which has noise. You can also bring an aux sound in, so just anything you want to bring in and run through the filters. And the amp envelope. You have 2 envelopes. They can be freely assigned in various ways, especially using the patch cords. It has an arpeggiator that has lots of different shapes. You can also sync that to the clock in the back or via MIDI sync. And then for connections on the back, you have 5-pin DIN in and out, as well as clock in and out. You've got headphone out as well as line out. Then you've got another very powerful out here that's not controlled by the master volume. The whole thing, like I said, is modular, and it's semi-modular in that you can run it without any patch cords at all, and there's quite a lot of flexibility of what you can do with no patch cords. But then, of course, when you add patch cords, you can not only make connections that aren't normally there, but you can also make connections to other Eurorack things because it isn't that standard. So we'll start with the oscillator section, and as I mentioned, it has saw, triangle, and pulse. You also have an output of those before going to the mixer. You've also got the ability to turn each of those on or off going through the output or the mixer. So you can have any combination of those and still run independent ones out to wherever else you want them to go, Eurorack or other parts in here, for example, and we'll talk about more in a second. But the filter has a low pass in, a band pass in, and a high pass in, which means you could have different oscillators or just different waves going to different filter types. So that's very cool. Okay, so now I'm going to start with the sawtooth wave. I have everything else wide open. I have the drive down, and so it should just be a plain saw wave, and I'll go through the range of that. So that's pretty slow. And then going up. And I'll do the same thing with triangle. And then square. And I have the shape setting to the middle, so I have a very normal square sound. And now I'm going to play with the shape knob, which in this case is going to change the pulse width. Which can be modulated by several things. Right now, the default is LFO triangle. So if I turn that up a little bit. I go to the other wave, sawtooth, I do shape on that. And on triangle, strangely, you can do shape on triangle too. And of course, anything you're hearing while I'm moving a knob can be moved via voltage control. And so now here's saw by itself, saw with triangle, saw with pulse, pulse with itself, pulse with triangle, and all three. And now I'm going to move the shape while all three are on. And now just to show you what that's like with some drive. It's a compact synth. It has an awful lot of features in a small space, but it has a playable keyboard that has velocity. It has a very usable joystick that's doing a lot of jobs. It's doing your pitch bend when the vibrato is lit. It's also doing vibrato depth and vibrato speed. When it is in its normal mode, it can also do hold, which can be latching like it is now, or you push straight down and click, and now it's temporarily holding your notes. I like the permanent one. When you're in the art mode, the joystick chooses between different kind of arpeggiations, up, down, random, the order you play, things like that. Oscillator 2 is identical to 1 in that it has the 3 outputs and it has the same 4 inputs. Once you learn one, obviously you know both of those. The envelopes are just your straight attack, decay, sustain, release. No surprises there. Your mixer, you have a white noise, so I'm going to turn the levels down, turn the white noise up. And this filter is very similar to the Core MS-20 filter. So it has that ripping ability and it can burble like crazy. And so it definitely has a characteristic all of its own that is very useful, especially if you're playing aggressive sounds. And I would have to say that if I had to pick a style that Malevolent just naturally wants to do, it's very aggressive, very ripping kind of sounds. And obviously, it's a synthesizer. You can take your time and get it to do soft, sweet, gentle things using the filter, also avoiding the drive and the FM and all that. But every synth kind of has the sounds it wants to make, and this wants to make aggressive sounds. So if that's something you're looking for, this is definitely one to consider. Some other things that make it great, the end caps come off. They're just magnetic. They just pop right off. And if you do that, all of a sudden this fits within a 19-inch rack, so you could put it on a shelf or something. You know, if you want to create your own end caps, it'd be easy to do. You just put magnets in the same place and on it goes. Another thing to know about this synth is that the knobs are very, very powerful. And that means that you have to spend a little more time turning the knobs slowly. You need to find all of the magic and beautiful and ugly things that are available on this synthesizer. Probably more than most synths, it's very easy to get yourself in a situation where you can't hear it or you can't figure out why something's modulating. And it takes a little bit of time to learn it, but pretty quickly you'll discover that it's going to be these mod knobs here, these mod knobs here, these mod knobs here, or these mod knobs here that are adding something that you want to go away. Just keep an eye on that they're all down to 0, and all of a sudden that'll go away. What's the benefit of that? Well, the benefit is that this synth can push itself far beyond synths that always stay pretty within their knob range. So it's kind of a toss-up. It's a little harder to control, but once you learn control of it, it's a very, very powerful synth. And now let's talk about the jacks. There's over 40 of them, and they give you a tremendous amount of power that you already have a lot of power here, but it lets you go even further. It lets you connect something to something that isn't already normalized in this green text here. So, for example, the shape mod is defaulted to LFO triangle, and I could tell that because it's in green, but if I wanted square wave going to that, I just plug it into the square wave output of the LFO. And now this knob will do the amount of square wave to shape, which will be a little harsh, but that's what square wave's going to do. And then if I wanted envelope to change pitch, I can do that here. But if for some reason I really wanted envelope 2 to go there, I can just take the output of envelope 2 and put it in the same place as envelope 1, and now I have a different control. Another thing I like are these lights that tell you that envelope 1 and 2 are being triggered, and you've also got an output light. It's just when you can't figure out what's wrong in your system, that you can't hear anything, it's nice to at least know that your envelopes are triggering and that you have some kind of output. Now let's try the 3 different states of the filter. My default, you can see that the mix out is going to low pass, so if I just sweep that, and if I wanted to hear what it sounds like through the bandpass, I just go out of my mix, right into bandpass, and now I have bandpass filter. I can also do high pass, same way. Now, like I said before, you could have multiple things going to multiple filters. So I could, if I wanted, to have VCO1 coming out and going into low pass, but having VCO2 going into the high pass. And now I can have something sweeping that cutoff by using FM1, which is currently envelope 1, but what if I wanted to do triangle? I'll do that. So now I've got a patch for a sweeter sound. I'm using velocity to change the filter cutoff a little bit. I'm also taking pulse out, bringing it into the aux, as well as using triangle. So I have separate control over the pulse volume, but it's mostly triangle, and so it's a very pretty little lead. And another thing I'll be playing with is glide time, which is done with the joystick with the vibrato off. If you push it upward, it increases the glide time. And then just 2 little utilities I got to show you just because they're so convenient. One of them is when you're trying to set the scaling on an analog synthesizer. Basically what you're doing is getting a note in tune and then making sure that an octave above it is in tune, an octave below it is in tune, and hopefully more octaves in either directions are in tune. And you're doing that while you're also adjusting the fine tuning, and it can be tricky, I gotta say. And the way that they do this on this is very clever. You simply hold the vibrato button, touch any key, and it runs octaves. Then you use the octave buttons to exactly get the octaves perfectly in tune. Another thing that helps is if you throw some delay or reverb on, it helps stretch those notes out so you can hear them over themselves. I'll do that now. And then the other feature is that you can take the clock output and put it into the aux in and power up holding vibrato, and now it gives you a middle C. You could tune both oscillators to middle C and then get the scaling exactly right so that everything's in line across the whole length of the keyboard. So just a beautiful idea, and I really like that. All right, now it's time to play with this thing. it gives you a little taste of the flexibility of the Malevolent modular synthesizer. If you have any questions about the Malevolent or the Nemesis delay by Source Audio, please contact your Sweetwater sales engineer. My name is Daniel Fisher. Thank you very much for watching.